This is Google's new Pixel 8a. Now, if you have any kind of interest in this phone, given you're here, you probably do, then I'm sure you'd have seen coverage of people calling this Google's latest mid-ranger. Well, not if you are Indian. Let me explain. This phone is priced at $499 in the US. You know what else is priced at $499 in the US? This phone, the OnePlus 12R, which launched for about 40,000 rupees in India. Of course, prices in India are higher, US price does not include sales tax, yada yada yada. You know how much this $499 phone costs in India? 53,000 rupees. Why do I talk about this right at the start, even before the intro? Well, because the disproportionate price increase kind of means the way I see this phone is different from, say, how MKBHD sees this phone. And as a result, this review is gonna be a little different from the ones you've seen so far. With that out of the way, if this is your first time here, or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, you're watching C4E Tech, and let's get started. Now guys, let me start by telling you this is not a let's bash the Pixel 8a phone, because there are things I genuinely like about this phone. So let's actually start on a positive note with things to like. The build, for example. I like the increased corner curvature. The back now has a matte finish and is pretty resistant to fingerprints. Well, this is plastic, the frame is metal, and that plus the matte finish, it gives the Pixel 8a a nice feel when you hold it. Now this phone, it's smaller than most others in this segment. It also weighs in at under 190 grams, so it's quite comfortable to hold. Talking about comfort, this camera visor design means the 8a is also comfortable to use when you set it down on a surface, because it's balanced and there's no wobbling. Now Google offers the 8a in 4 colors. What you're seeing here is porcelain, then there's obsidian, aloe, and bay. The green and blue, they are a little more saturated this time, and I like it. The 8a is also the first time Google's offering wireless charging on an A series phone, and we still get the IP67 rating, so good stuff. Now obviously the biggest selling point for Pixels is forever been optics, and that continues with the 8a too. The hardware though remains unchanged from its predecessor, so the primary, it's still 64 megapixels and f1.9 with OIS. And as you can see, it does an excellent job. The images are detailed, the colors are typically pixel, there's that contrast. It does tend to stray onto the warmer side at times, which you'll notice more once I pull in the OnePlus 12R for reference. But as you can see, the images, they still look pretty darn good. Now Pixels have always excelled at dynamic range, and the 8a is no different. See this? This is the perfect example, shooting a subject in front of a bright background. See what the 8a can do compared to the 12R? Now low light is yet another area that Pixels have traditionally dominated, and that continues here too. Low light images were excellent. Now there is no telephoto here, but Google claims we can crop into the sensor center and shoot 2x photos that are technically lossless. As long as there's enough light, the results are fine. And it's the same story with the ultra wides too. The images look great. Yes, there's some edge distortion, but this 13 megapixel sensor does a good job of fitting more into the frame. Video, it's typically Google. The 8a can go up to 4K 60. Footage is very stable, but it does have that slight EIS jitter that's been a staple of Pixel devices for a long time. Barring that, good stuff. Selfies, they have that pixel contrast, which makes them look better than selfies shot with most phones in this segment. I've like forever been a fan of Pixel selfies, and the 8a, it continues to keep me a fan. By the way, this phone can do 4K via the selfie camera, which is not something you can do with a lot of other phones. And the footage is crisp, detailed, well stabilized. As you can see, the cameras are good. And Pixel's A series of phones is where I typically go get it for the camera, because the camera has traditionally been way better than anything else in that segment. Now this time, as you've been seeing in this video, a cheaper or similarly priced phone like the OnePlus 12R, depending on which market you're watching this from, it could keep up with the 8a. Yeah, the 8a is still better, but the gap between this Pixel and the competition at this price point, it's the narrowest it's ever been. Okay, moving on to the next positive, software. The 8a, like the other Pixel 8 series phones, it also gets 7 years of Android updates. Actual updates, not security patches. And the 8a gets all the features that we've been impressed by on the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro. Best Take, Audio Magic Eraser, Gemini AI Assistant, super quick speech to text for real-time audio recording transcriptions, circle to search that we first saw on the S24 series, it's all present here. And the interface, it's pretty much the cleanest you're gonna get on Android. But here's a hot take, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna be unhappy about this next part. Tell me this, if Xiaomi or Oppo or Vivo preloaded an app store on their phone, where when you search for an app, you get 13 suggestions/ads shown to you before you get to see 2 organic, non-promoted results. Think of the amount of outrage that would cause. But that's exactly what Google's doing with the Play Store. And unlike, say, YouTube ads, this isn't something you can pay and make it go away. And this isn't like Gmail or Android on a different manufacturer's phone, where you can make the argument that Google's at least providing a service for free, so they need to make money off it. But this is Google's own hardware that they are already making money off. And one of its key selling points is its clean interface and lack of bloat. And then there is this. It just kind of feels off to me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyways, before we totally switch on over to the cons, the battery life is excellent. It's only 4492 mAh, which doesn't sound like much, but I'd say the battery life is on par with something like the OnePlus 12R. In my week with the Pixel 8a, I've never felt the need to be conservative in my usage. That said, the charging, there's wireless charging now, 7.5 watts, so not really useful. Takes like forever to charge. And if you thought maybe reverse wireless might be useful for charging your buds or something, well, think again, because that's not an option. Wired charging is faster, but not by much, 18 watts, meaning it takes about 2 hours to get this to fully charge. Anyways, moving on, let's get to performance. Google's Tensor G3, the flagship SoC that you find on the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro, that's what you find here, no changes. And coupled with the clean Pixel software, the user experience, it's great because the phone is fast, responsive, snappy, especially given the refresh rate is now 120 Hz. Out of the box at 60, smooth motion needs to be toggled on manually. Now the Tensor G3 is not the most powerful chip, as in it's not going to take on Qualcomm's current gen or even last gen flagship SoC, because when you look at the raw numbers, it's more comparable to Qualcomm's 2-year-old 8 Gen 1, which might be an issue on the Pixel 8 or the 8 Pro, but here on the A series phone, it's not that big an issue. But there is an issue here. The fact that the Tensor G3 on this, it seems to run really hot, even with casual use. There were times where I'd just be, say, playing back music and the phone would feel warm to touch. A 20-minute video call makes it very uncomfortable to hold. And now that's something I find super rare. I've experienced it only once or twice in the last 3-4 years, I guess on a Sony flagship. And usually you either have a phone that heats up or throttles. Here it does both. It gets hot and it throttles. With the stress test, as you can see, about 7-8 minutes in, the Pixel 8a loses about 50% of its performance, meaning you're down from Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 performance to Snapdragon 865 performance, and that's just bad. Anyways, moving on, the display, we finally get 120 Hz. Google calls this an Actua display. Basically, it's a 6.1-inch POLED panel with a Full HD Plus resolution, and this is a very good panel. Google boasts of a 2000 nit brightness peak for HDR, and in my testing it hit 1650 and auto. Quite easy to see what's happening on screen when you use it outdoors. That is, till it gets hot and the brightness drops, which sadly happens quite quickly. Now cosmetically, the bezels are bad. I mean, this is 20K, 30K, 40K, and this is 53K. It doesn't make much sense, does it? The Pixel 8a, it gives me a Samsung Core phone or a Moto E phone vibe. And at this asking price, that's definitely not a good thing. The speaker output is pretty good. It's a rich, but it's not as loud as most other phones in this segment. Here, have a listen. Now guys, maybe I come across as being a little too critical of this phone, maybe a little too nitpicky, because at the end of the day, the 8A, I'm not really calling it a bad phone. Maybe I am. You tell me. It's just that at the end of the day, there are way too many issues with it, and these aren't accidental issues. These are conscious decisions made by Google that have resulted in these kind of issues. Like at this price, are you telling me Google could not have put in smaller bezels? I mean, literally every other brand's been able to do it. Or do you really think Google couldn't have gone for a better thermal solution? Or faster charging? Or thrown in a charger and a case in the box? These are things Google chose to do. Now, are these compromises you can live with? Now, if this were the only phone I could use for the next 2-3 years, is that something I would regret? Probably not. But given everything that's available, and all these phones you're seeing on screen right now, they are much cheaper. Given all these exist, I don't see why anyone would choose the 8A with all its compromises. Yes, the overall camera experience is definitely better than pretty much everything else in that segment, but I don't think that's enough to justify all the corners that have been cut. The Pixel 8A, it's a very hard phone to love. Maybe that's just me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.